Hey folks, how's it going? Today we're going to have an overview of the Holy Paladin as we march in towards 8.15. Holy Paladin, if you're not familiar, are a ton of fun. They are a melee class healer. So they're up close in the action. They're swinging a giant two-handed mace. Um, Really, the Holy Paladin is full of a couple different strengths here, and we will certainly go through a bit of a walkthrough from a spell summary build talent standpoint, and then stick with the video. We'll talk about the rotation, of how you want to prioritize your stats, really some tips about how to improve, and then really what's the benefit of playing Holy Paladin compared to the other classes out there. Hey folks, so if you're new to Holy Paladin, you want to prioritize intellect almost just about everything. Crit is our second area that we want the most, crit and then mastery. If you're looking to prioritize a Holy Shock build, there's one that we include and cover in this guide. Haste is going to be your desired secondary stat. For cooldowns, your primary ones are going to be Avenging Wrath, Holy Avenger, and Aura Mastery. They're all a lot of fun. We explain them and how the priority system works. Almost all raid groups will love or aspire to have a Holy Paladin. Additionally, in Mythic Plus, they're kind of the top tier. For Holy Paladin strengths, they've got excellent passive healing through that Beacon of Light. They've got great single target healing. In terms of Holy Paladin weaknesses, they lack a raid-wide healing cooldown, such as a Tranquility that you'll see with Druids, or a Healing Tide Totem, which Shamans are just excellent at. They really struggle with multiple targets. I know learning to be a healer with a Paladin was a bit of work for me personally. In terms of talent builds, the Holy Paladin has two outcomes now. To start BFA, there's a really standard Avenging Crusader, and that's the build you're seeing up on the screen right now. That's with Bestowed Faith, Rule of Law, any of your crowd controls, but I go Fist of Justice, Devotion Aura, Judgment of Light, which has its own quirks with it, Avenging Crusade, and Divine Purpose, and we can jump into each of these in particular. But when 8.1 dropped, there was a significant change to high-end Holy Paladins, and we'll discuss it here in a moment. Um, what actually started to stand out is around the mana efficiency for Avenging Crusader and Beacon of Faith healing. So still a viable healing setup, but there's some encounters where there's actually an opportunity now for Holy Paladins to change their build, which is great. It's actually overdue. This is tied to the Glimmer of Light build. So if you're actually interested in Glimmer of Light, I'm going to play it a little bit differently. It provides a unique way of healing for Holy Pals. Um, really focuses on emphasizing as many Holy Shocks as possible. That I found this was much more similar to my form of gameplay. Um, it really allows you to just spread out that Glimmer of Light buff around your raid and take advantage of different healing it can do. So you'll see a few different talent swings here. To go with the Glimmer of Light, you actually want to switch from Bestow Faith to Crusader's Might. I like that because it's one less ability that I'm accountable for. Rule of Law stays the same. Crowd control is still up to you. Devotion Aura, same. Holy Avenger, you swing back to that, which is a personal preference for me. I'll take a haste boost anytime I possibly can. Alternatively, you jump back and you actually go with Sanctified Wrath instead of Avenging Crusader. So your Wrath is going to last 25% longer. Holy Shock cooldown 50%, right? That's the major win as you start getting these Glimmer of Light builds. And then finally, you stick with the Divine Purpose instead of a Beacon of Faith, which is in a raid very different. Almost all raid settings previously with the Avenging Crusader build would prioritize your Beacon of Faith so that you can spot heal the two tanks. The Glimmer of Light build, it really is aimed at maximizing the cast. So Crusader's Might lets you really stack up some Crusader strikes to reduce the cooldown of your Holy Shock. Avenging Wrath, we talked about it, dropping the cooldown of your Holy Shock. And then Divine Purpose, giving you a chance at free Holy Shock. It's really aimed at as many instacasts as possible. And from a mana management standpoint, it's a great way to go. Alternatively, if you're just starting out, you can go with either Crusader's Might or Bestow Faith. Crusader's Might is probably the intro version. It's just one less ability you need to manage. But the healing over time benefit from Bestowed Faith, while not instant, it certainly helps. In terms of Tier 2, Rule of Laws is essentially the go-to, especially if you think you are going to be outside of the range. Very few scenarios, maybe the odd time in Mythic Plus, you'll need to increase the Paladin's mobility. And then for Unbreakable Spirit, you see it right there. That's just one of the former go-tos. In 8.0, it was something we would consider. Or if you're just pushing you versus the environment, and you're more focused on playing more of a Shakaton, yeah, get that shield downtime or cooldown as minimal as possible. Fists of Justice, that's an easy go-to. I typically keep that because I do run my Paladin through some PvP. Alternatively, what I like to play with, Devotion Aura is almost always the go-to for us. Keep that going almost all the time. Like I said, Holy Avenger you can play with. Holy Prism, I've actually switched this in when I'm playing Shakaden, so if you're considering continuing to go with a build or you're out in the world, maybe you can walk away from Holy Avenger. The haste is a big perk. It's basically like another set of wings, but alternatively, that the damage that Holy Prism can do can be a lot of fun as well. Judgment of the Light, hey, that's kind of straightforward, but giving you that ability to have a few more successful attacks, I don't really feel it's that beneficial in a lot of different scenarios. Um, whether you're in Wrath or you go with Avenging Crusader, both just they have a great complement in almost either situation that you find yourself in. If you're really looking to complement Crusader Strike and Judgment cooldowns, Avenging Crusader is probably the winner. If you're actually not planning on doing any damage, so if you're not going into Mythic Plus, Sanctified Wrath is a good path forward. Divine Purpose, great. If you're just learning how to heal and you are gonna rock some LFR or work your way up the raid tree, Beacon of Faith, being able to complement both tanks from a healing standpoint really differentiates the Holy Paladins from the other healers out there. In terms of rotation, if you're going for a single target heal or tank healing, keep that Beacon of Faith on your target, whoever it is. Rock Bestow Faith on them basically on cooldown. That'll have about 11 seconds for it to recharge. Keep that going as long as you possibly can. And then Holy Light for the lower damage, and then Flash of Light as damage starts to build up more and more, but recognize that Flash of Light's going to chew up a little more mana on your part. And if your target that you're trying to knock out isn't taking enough damage, for rotation, if you are going to do some raid healing, keep Beacon of Light on your tank or whatever target is taking a bunch of damage. Use that Holy Shock as often as possible on cooldown. Use Judgment on whichever target it is you're playing with. Keep that uptime maximized for Judgment of Light. If you've selected it, Light of Dawn as much as possible as soon as it cools down. Holy Prism, that's an easy go-to if you're looking to damage your opponent. In terms of rotation for 5-man healing, it's really similar to single target. You'll find that Light of Dawn can actually be useful if you have that Beacon of Virtue going on. So you should use it honestly as often as you can when you've got multiple team members taking a bunch of damage. Around the Glimmer of Light build, if you are trying to push this, great, it's going to be a lot of fun. Keep that Beacon of Light on your target always. Holy Shock as much as possible on cooldown, especially on the target that doesn't have the Glimmer of Light buff. There's no value in stacking it. Go with Light of the Dawn if multiple targets need healing. It's one of my fun favorite cones, and I just really like the visual animation that comes with it. In terms of Crusader Strike, use as often as you can to help knock down Holy Shock's cooldown, and then Holy Light for low damage, and then Flash of Light as people start needing a little bit more. There we go, just like that. Set up most overs like this. Build a couple different macros. There's a bunch of pretty straightforward guides either on Wowhead, Icy Veins, a few different components out there. In terms of cooldowns, folks, really rock that Avenging Wrath as often as you can. Look, you just look badass. That's not an accident. You know you're gonna do some serious business here. If you've got a component or a raid member that's in major trouble, drop on Lay on Hands. It gives them a full, complete top up. It's a lifesaver. It literally is. Blessing of Sacrifice. That's going to last for basically 12 seconds. And what it allows you to do is reduce the damage they take by 30%, but you suffer 75% of the damage prevented. So you have to be smart with it. It will knock you down or kill you if you don't pay enough attention to it. Ultimately, for Holy Pals, we want to be looking for crits as much as possible. That's why, from a secondary standpoint, if you're on the Alliance side, humans are a great go-to. Alternatively, you can look over on the Horde side. Uh, Blood Elves have been the popular one for a very long time, but we'll just see what Zandalar looks like. I think they're going to be absolutely fantastic and a lot of fun. Divine Protection, Divine Shield, kind of looked at Divine Protection earlier. That's a 20% reduction for damage. Divine Shield, that's a complete immunity for 8 seconds. So it can certainly help in a variety of different life-saving scenarios. Keep your eyes open for them. We'll see what we can do really quickly here. From an Aura Mastery standpoint, this basically powers up the aura that you've chosen. So for us, it's almost always Devotion Aura. Reduces all damage taken by 20%. But when you do utilize Aura Mastery, it all the affected allies in your area gain 20% damage reduction. So it's definitely a perk there. So keep your eye on that. Stat priority for Holy Paladins is actually pretty straightforward. You're looking to get as much intellect as possible, and then after that, you're really looking for critical strike and mastery. The big component in Battle for Azeroth, obviously, global cooldowns are a big part of the game now, and haste seems to be everybody's new favorite secondary. Um, Haste is really important. But the value of haste is a little bit curious because it can vary even when you're up against the same boss. So be careful with your mana usage and spell selection. If you find yourself out of mana before the fight's over, you got to check out and see if you're casting too many expensive spells. That's the play with haste. If you're going with a Glimmer of Light stat priority, there is a significant difference. You're not looking for as much crit. Crit is the typical go-to, but if you're going to go with this build, you want to go intellect, haste, then mastery, as opposed to intellect, crit, mastery. So keep that in mind. You're really looking to reduce the cooldowns of Holy Shock and Crusader Strike, and that's what haste brings. But BFA has brought a lot in terms of recharge time to the game, and this is a major component that we should keep an eye open for. In terms of improving your Holy Paladin gameplay, certainly keep an eye on your raid logs or game logs as they exist out there, but take some time, check out the guides that exist on Icy Veins, Wowhead, as well as the Paladin Discord servers that are out there. Really great, helpful resources to get you kicked off, or drop your questions down below in the comment section. A couple closing thoughts. If you are in raid, be smart with Light of the Martyr. It's something that a newer Holy Paladin can really easily make some mistakes with using it too often. It really doesn't account for the damage the Paladin does to themselves when they cast the spell. In terms of your cooldowns, don't be afraid to use them. Like, don't be afraid to abuse them. Holy Paladin has a lot of really short cooldowns. You just seen me drop right there, Divine Protection. 60-second cooldown. Spam this. It only helps your survivability. Um, Alternatively, abuse Holy Shock. Not a huge mana cost to it. Keep that going as much as possible. We've got a lot of cheaper heals. Go to them as much as you possibly can. Really try to avoid the flash of light until your targets are needing quite a bit of help. In terms of using your longer cooldowns, never be afraid to rock them as you need, but it's as important as anything in terms of smart damage usage to use your larger healing cooldowns, like Avenging Wrath, as often as you can. As long as there's healing to be done, you should be rocking your wings. The other major consideration, don't heal your beacons too often. If you've got a beacon of light set up on your tank, don't focus that tank to the point where it's such a detriment to the other members that you're playing with. And then the final area of focus for Holy Paladins, really keep an eye on your positioning. Holy Paladins have a bunch of different reasons why they can get right into the fray. One is the lore component of how they've been put together. The other is just the damage mitigation. They're one of the few healers that are actually rocking plate gear. So there's actually quite a bit of fun to be had with your Holy Pals. Definitely take as much time as you can. There's also websites out there like WoW Analyzer. Take some time, go check them out. Alright folks, let me know what you think. Did you like this guide? Drop it down in the comments, and thanks for watching. See ya!